Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's ID Vixen and you're watching Vixen Reviews. Okay guys, before I get into my review of Chapter 4, Season 3 Stranger Things, the sauna test, there are going to be spoilers from this point on, so if you haven't even seen like the first episode, just watch it all and then come back and watch these reviews and see if you agree with what I say. Okay, first off, amazing episode as always. There's a lot going on here and we finally get some really good, like, intense action, which is what we live for in Stranger Things. And of course, at the first sign of proper action in this show, you know it can only go up. It can only get better. So we finally get to see some like monster action, which is the thing the Stranger Things fans, we crave this. We live for this. This is what we have been waiting for. And it's finally here in chapter 4. Okay, so it starts off with Max and Elle leaving Heather's house, who of course is under the control of the Mind Flayer. Now Max is convinced that Billy is normal and there's nothing wrong with him, but Elle, she's still hesitant after, of course, what she saw when she was spying on Billy. Now after they leave, Billy and Heather kidnap Heather's parents and give them to the Mind Flayer's physical form. Now, the thing worth mentioning again is that Heather's father is Tom, who is also Nancy's and Jonathan's boss at the Hawkins Post. Now, in the last episode, I forgot to mention this, but Hopper was attacked by one of the Russian men we see at the start of episode 1, where he strangles a scientist. So yeah, he attacks Hopper in Hawkins' lab, and so Joyce in Chapter 4, we get to see his recovery after he's fine. Like, Joyce helped him back on his feet. She had to drag him back by herself, which wasn't easy. Another thing that happened, and I need to kind of go into more detail, is Nancy and Jonathan get fired for investigating Mrs. Driscoll's claims. So in I think it's like the second episode, we meet Mrs. Driscoll, who calls the Hawkins Post because she thinks there's rabid rats in her, like rats with rabies, in her basement eating fertilizer. Now, of course, Nancy and Jonathan are skeptical of this, but they investigate but the rats, Mrs. Driscoll trapped a rat who's like freaking out. He's banging against the cage. He's screeching. He's losing his mind, basically, or whatever type of mind a rat has. And of course he actually ends up blowing up, as most of the rats did, like what we saw in the first chapter 1. And the goo kind of crawled out, and we later discover at the end of chapter 3 that the goo went into Mrs. Driscoll, and she is now under the control of the Mind Flayer. And when Nancy and Jonathan go back to her house, they see her eating fertilizer. So because of this, then in the episode 4, Tom, who is now under control of the Mind Flayer, fires Nancy and Jonathan. Now this leads Jonathan and Nancy to it seems like they've broken up, which is another huge moment. So the next thing that kind of happens is Mike, Will, and Lucas try to get in contact with Elle and Max, who aren't like really, they don't want to talk to them at the start, but they eventually listen. And they explain that Will has said the Mind Flayer is back. And then Elle and Max share their suspicion about Billy. So they decide to do the sauna test, where they're going to trap Billy in a sauna because, of course, the Mind Flayer likes it cold. So if there is any heat, he will be activated, and then they'll know. Of course, now Max she's praying it isn't Billy. She doesn't want it to be Billy. And this is like a really interesting development because, as we know, in season 2, Billy was a horrible brother to Max, but now we can see that Max still cares for him despite all of that. So when they all trap Billy in the sauna, they turn up the heat, and we get to see Billy starts to reveal a real vulnerable side, which is of course great character development, and it really pulls on the heartstrings. It's like, oh my god. But we learn it's the Mind Flayer's tricks trying to get Max to let Billy out. And of course, Billy loses his mind when he doesn't get his way, and he tries to kill Elle. And then Mike saves her, and Billy runs away. Now, the other thing that happens is Nancy's mom convinces her she needs to pursue the story, even though she was fired. So Nancy decides to visit Mrs. Driscoll in the hospital. And then at the same time that Billy is kind of flipping out and trapped in the sauna, Mrs. Driscoll starts reacting because she too is possessed by the Mind Flayer. And then Nancy realizes this, and then the episode ends with Billy talking to Heather, and we seeing that the Mind Flayer's army of humans has grown like amazingly. So that's where we've left off in the episode. Now, like I said, this was a great episode. There was a lot of action going on. So much happened. Like you had to pay attention to everything in the episode because it just makes it's just a lot happens. Now, of course, we do get to see a bit with Steve, Robin, and Erica, Lucas's little sister, who's going to help them break into the Russian secret headquarters in Starcourt Mall because they think they're going to be heroes for this. So they're like trapped in an elevator right now. And that's where the episode's like at the moment. So chapter 5 is going to be so great, and I can't wait to review it, guys. But yeah, no, this was a fantastic episode. Really enjoyed it. Really recommended it. This is probably the most exciting episode that I have watched. Now, whether I say that about the next episode, who knows? But so far, so good. Like season 3 of Stranger Things, it is living up to the amazing expectations, and we're seeing different sides to the characters. Like we can really see they're no longer children anymore. They've matured. They're moving on to different things, but some of them don't want to move on. So there really is like a lot going on in regards to character development, which is of course a very important thing. And it's great to see how well Stranger Things, the Duffer Brothers, are handling that. Alright guys, thank you for listening to this review. Please smash the thumbs up button. And of course, if you are new here, please subscribe to the channel down below. Your support is appreciated. Alright guys, this is ID Vixen signing off.